Dark evidence presents the fire they couldn't stop. Windscale, Britain's Chernobyl. October 10th, 1957, 4:30 p.m. Cumbria, England. A 400-foot chimney stands against the grey sky. Below it, a nuclear reactor hums with power. 150 tons of uranium fuel are about to reach 1,300 degrees Celsius. A foreman named Tom Toohey finishes his shift and goes home. But something nags at him, something he can't explain. He drives back to the plant. He looks up at the chimney. Smoke is pouring out. Thick, grey, radioactive smoke. He runs to raise the alarm. But here's the nightmare. No one knows how to stop a nuclear fire that was never supposed to start. The manuals don't cover this. The training never mentioned it. The designers swore it could never happen. But it was happening, and the fate of an entire nation hung in the balance. This is the story of Windscale. The worst nuclear disaster in British history. A fire that burned for 3 days. A government cover-up that lasted 50 years. And the forgotten heroes who saved their country then were erased by the very people they served. Tonight, on Dark Evidence, we revealed the full story. The race for the bomb. We must never let ourselves be left behind. Hiroshima, Nagasaki. The war ends, but a new one begins. The Cold War settles over Europe like a winter that will never thaw. America has the bomb. The Soviet Union is racing to build its own. And Britain, exhausted, bankrupt, but still dreaming of empire, cannot bear to be left behind. Prime Minister Clement Attlee makes a secret decision. Parliament is not consulted. The public is not informed. The Treasury is simply told to find the money. Britain will build its own atomic bomb. The project is codenamed High Explosive Research. It is so secret that even the name is a lie. Britain, without a massive river for water-cooled reactors like America's, improvised. Engineers designed an air-cooled reactor. Simple, cheap, and fast. Giant fans pushed air through a graphite block, cooling uranium fuel, then up a 400-foot chimney. But this design was unprecedented. Americans had rejected air cooling as too risky, difficult to control. Yet, Britain, needing plutonium urgently, built it anyway. During construction, young physicist Terence Price raised a critical question. What if a uranium cartridge burst? Smoke would carry radiation up the chimney, with no filters or containment. His warning was ignored, deemed too difficult and expensive to address. However, word reached Sir John Cockcroft, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist and director of atomic energy. Alarmed, he ordered massive filters installed on both chimneys, despite the concrete being set. Engineers called them Cockcroft's Follies. 8 years later, those follies would be Britain's only defense against catastrophe. There is another problem. One no one fully understands until it's too late. A physicist named Eugene Wigner discovered something strange. When neutrons pass through graphite, they knock carbon atoms out of place. The atoms don't leave, they just shift, creating tiny dislocations. And those dislocations store energy, like a compressed spring, like a wound clock. Over time, billions of these dislocations accumulate. The graphite becomes a reservoir of potential energy. If not released gradually, it can release spontaneously a sudden, massive burst of heat. This is Wigner energy. The only known cure is annealing, heating the entire reactor core to over 250 degrees Celsius, allowing the graphite to relax and release its stored energy safely. Windscale Pile 1 has been annealed 8 times. Each time, it works. The 9th time will be different. Britain tests its first atomic bomb. The yield is 25 kilotons, comparable to Nagasaki. Britain is now the 3rd nuclear power. But the celebration is short-lived. America has already moved on. In November 1952, the United States tests the world's first hydrogen bomb. Its yield is 10.4 megatons, 400 times larger than Hiroshima. Britain is suddenly, painfully obsolete. The race is on again. This time, the prize is not an atomic bomb. It's a thermonuclear weapon. Prime Minister Harold Macmillan promises that Britain will test its first hydrogen bomb by the end of 1957. The weapons designers are waiting for plutonium. The military is waiting for the test. The cabinet is watching. And Windscale, the sole source of British weapons-grade plutonium, is struggling to keep up. The reactor is old. The graphite is saturated with Wigner energy. Burst cartridges are becoming more frequent, but the operators are ordered to increase output. Warnings are ignored. Safety margins are eroded. Annealing cycles are postponed. By October 1957, Windscale Pile 1 is a pressure vessel filled with combustible fuel, stored energy, and human exhaustion. It is only a matter of time. October 7, 1957. The 9th annealing cycle begins. The operators reduce airflow, letting the reactor heat up naturally. But something is wrong. The temperatures are not rising evenly. Some channels are hot, some are cold. Channel 2053 is rising faster than any other, 250 degrees, 300, 350, 400. The operators are confused. The reactor should be cooling. Why is one channel getting hotter? They cannot see inside. There are no cameras, no visual inspection ports. The uranium cartridge in channel 2053 has not just burst, it is burning, and every second of cooling air is feeding the flames. October 10th, 4:30 p.m. Tom Toohey looks up and sees smoke pouring from the chimney. Alarms ringing, men shouting, a fire hose spraying water. The operators try everything. Carbon dioxide, nothing. Pushing the burning cartridge out, it jams. Someone suggests water. Water on a graphite fire. Every textbook, every training manual, every safety briefing agrees. Never put water on a graphite fire. The graphite is hot enough to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. The hydrogen will ignite. The oxygen will feed the fire. The steam expansion could rupture the reactor vessel. The entire building could become a bomb. But the carbon dioxide isn't working. The fire is spreading. The filters cannot absorb radioactive particles forever. Toohey makes the call. We use water. The charged face is not the only way to deliver water. The top of the reactor has small access points directly above the core. But the roof is the most radioactive place in the building. The chimney is spewing unfiltered smoke. The radiation levels are unknown. The instruments have already maxed out. Tom Toohey climbs the ladder anyway. He spends the next several hours on that roof, directing a fire hose down into the heart of the inferno. He works in near darkness, illuminated only by the glow of the fire below. No dosimeter, no radiation suit, no idea how much poison he is absorbing. He only knows that if he stops, the fire will not. By dawn on October 11th, the temperature is falling, the fire is retreating. The crisis has passed. Toohey descends from the roof. He is exhausted. His clothes are soaked. His hands are blistered. He does not go to hospital. He does not demand recognition. He does not even tell his family what he has done. He goes home, he sleeps. He returns to work the next day. He will not speak publicly about that night for 30 years. The government launches an investigation. In secret, the witnesses are sworn to silence. The evidence is classified. The final report is stamped secret and locked away. The conclusion, when it finally emerges decades later, is carefully crafted to protect the institutions and condemn the individuals. The fire was caused by an error of judgment by the operators. The workers who first raised concerns about burst cartridges and Wigner energy are not mentioned. The men who risked their lives are not praised. They are scapegoated. Tom Toohey is not fired. He is not demoted. He is simply erased. His name removed from official records. His heroism never acknowledged. He carries this silence for 30 years. The radioactive cloud drifted southeast across England and Wales. It settled on pasture land. Cows ate the contaminated grass. Their milk became contaminated. The government knew within days. Milk samples across the country showed elevated levels of iodine 131. The response was swift, efficient, and secret. Milk from affected areas was quietly diverted to processing plants, diluted with uncontaminated milk, and sold to unsuspecting consumers. No public announcement, no health warnings. No one was told their children were drinking radioactive milk. The official estimate of additional cancer deaths is approximately 240. Some researchers say higher, some say lower. What is not disputed is this: the government chose secrecy over transparency, and thousands of families paid the price with their health. 31 years after the fire, the British government declassifies the Windscale inquiry records. The full transcript of the investigation is made public. For the first time, the British people learn what really happened on that October night. The rushed construction, the ignored warnings, the political pressure to produce plutonium, the fire that burned for 3 days, the men who fought it with CO and push rods and, ultimately, water. And they learn that their own government lied to them. Tom Toohey is 72 years old. He is finally free to speak. He gives interviews to newspapers and television programs. He describes, in his quiet, unassuming way, climbing onto that roof with a fire hose. He does not exaggerate his role. He does not seek praise. He simply tells the truth. His family hears his story for the first time. His children learn what their father did on that October night in 1957. Tom Toohey dies in 2008, 1 year after the 50th anniversary of the fire. He is 82 years old. His obituary appears in several British newspapers. It describes him as the man who saved Britain from nuclear catastrophe. He would have hated that description. He never thought of himself as a hero. He was just an engineer who did his job. The Windscale piles were decommissioned long ago. Pile 1 was permanently shut down after the fire. Pile 2 continued operating until 1958, then closed. Both reactors still stand today, sealed and silent. The chimney still rises 400 feet above the Cumbrian coast. The filters Cockcroft's follows are still there, rusting but intact. Inside the sealed reactor vessel, 2,000 tons of irradiated graphite still hold the memory of that October fire. Decommissioning will continue until 2140. The heroes we forget. Why do we tell these stories? Because heroes are not always obvious. They are not always the men who climb onto roofs with fire hoses, though those men deserve our gratitude. Sometimes they are the men who raise uncomfortable questions at technical meetings. Sometimes they are the men who insist on installing filters that everyone else thinks are unnecessary. Sometimes they are the men who quietly resign when they realize their warnings have been ignored. The heroes of Windscale are not famous. Their names are not inscribed on monuments. Their faces are not printed on postage stamps. But they saved Britain. They saved countless lives, both known and unknown, and they did it without any expectation of reward. The final word On October 10, 1957, Tom Toohey looked up at a chimney spewing radioactive smoke and made a choice. He could have walked away. He could have followed protocol. He could have waited for someone else to take responsibility. He did not. He climbed onto that roof. He picked up that hose. He stood in the heart of the inferno and fought the fire until it was out. He did it because it was his job. He did it because he could not imagine doing anything else. He did it because, in that moment, the only thing that mattered was stopping the catastrophe. He did not expect to be thanked. He did not expect to be remembered. He did not expect that, decades later, someone would tell his story. But we are telling it now, and we will keep telling it, as long as there are people willing to listen, because the truth cannot stay buried forever. The Windscale fire was the worst nuclear disaster in British history. Estimated additional cancer deaths, 240 plus. Government cover-up, 31 years. Decommissioning expected to continue until 2140. This documentary is dedicated to Tom Toohey, Terence Price, Sir John Cockcroft, and every unsung hero who risked their life to save others. I just did my job, that's all. I just did my job. Dark evidence, where the evidence tells the story, but the heart remembers. Subscribe now.